The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Please state your name for the record.
David Mohajer.
Mr. Mohajer, are you currently the co-host of the podcast known as Spies Like Us?
I am.
What is the nature of this podcast?
We discuss spy movies and television shows.
And what exactly is the nature of your contribution to this podcast?
I analyze and discuss the movies with my co-host, and I am also principally responsible for the distribution of this podcast.
Have you distributed these podcasts to iTunes and Google Podcasts?
Not only that, I've distributed them to Stitcher, Spotify, Downcast, and all places where excellent and entertaining podcasts can be found.
Is your co-host Todd Hostetler present in this room today, and could you point him out for us?
Dude, what are you talking about? That's you. You're Todd Hostetler. You're the co-host, and you're the one that wrote this bit.
This hearing will come to order. Mr. Mohajer, are we here today to discuss the 2016 political thriller Miss Sloane?
Yes, we are.
Shall we begin?
First-time scriptwriter Jonathan Pereira is inspired by the Jack Abramoff story to write his own take on the dirty underbelly of Washington politics. Movie studio Film Nation finds the script virtually by accident, but sees enough potential to sign Oscar winner John Madden to direct and powerhouse actress Jessica Chastain to star. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
The political thriller genre often strays into spy territory. Miss Sloane is here to show us that she might have had a missed calling with the CIA in this episode of Spies Like Us.
This particular episode, I think we need to give a full blast spoiler warning. All of our other shows definitely deal with a lot of spoilers, but this is one of those super intricate thriller films where there's lots of twists, lots of turns, a lot of what have yous. So
ins and outs.
Lots of in and out, lots of ins, lots of outs, lots of what have yous. Yeah, definitely. We're not holding back on the spoilers here. We're definitely going to be digging into this one. I was particularly really, really excited to talk about this film.
Me too. Oh, yeah, I love it. I love this movie.
It's really dense, and there's a lot of subtleties and a lot of details that we're going to go over. So we're giving a hefty spoiler warning for this particular episode.
Sure. So yeah, today's movie is Miss Sloane, that was released in November of 2016. It was, sadly, a box office disappointment, grossing only $9 million against a $13 million budget. And $13 million is not a lot in the first place.
No.
So that's really lame. And I think, I don't know, I think like November was a really good time for it to come out too. And I didn't really see a whole bunch of other movies that were like knocking it out of its rightful place.
I remember
yeah.
it coming out. I think you're the one that told me about it like 2 years
Oh,
ago.
yeah. I don't think I'd ever heard of it until my brother-in-law turned me onto it. He brings me some really good movies because he flies to Asia a lot. So he watches a bunch of movies on long flights. And so he tends to dig into like, you know, he gets deep into the catalog of what the airline has to offer is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, he brings me some good surprises sometimes, and I definitely thank him for this one. Yeah, critics dug it just fine. It is a really good movie. Everyone was like, yay about Chastain's performance.
She's always good.
She is always good. She didn't get nominated for an Oscar for this one, which I didn't check who did. I'm sure they were worthy or whatever, but I was kind of surprised she didn't get nominated. She did get a nomination for the Golden Globe, though. And our director is John Philip Madden. He's best known for winning Best Picture for Shakespeare in Love. And this movie is got a little bit of an interesting story on the development of it's. This is a first-time scriptwriter, Jonathan Pereira. He's an attorney that he was watching an interview with Jack Abramoff after Jack Abramoff's book came out in 2011 that it showed us all that no matter how dirty we thought the lobbying industry was, it was like way worse than we even could have imagined.
Yeah.
Chastain herself, she read Abramoff's book in preparation for the role, and at first she thought that the character would be like played with like no makeup and wearing like the same clothes over and over, because she thought like this is a person that's so dedicated to their work that they're not they're not interested in cosmetics at all. They don't want to waste any time like picking out what to wear. But after she tailed some female lobbyists in Washington, she realized that like the appearance is like such a huge part of the game, and that she described like the suits that the women wear as like suits of armor that they wear into battle. And,
is that why she deliberately had different outfits in the movie? We definitely got to point out the outfits.
The outfits are awesome. Are awesome. She's always in black, right?
Right.
Always super serious black. I like her black fingernails.
Yeah.
And but she's the kind of person though that like she doesn't have probably any fashion sense whatsoever. She hires someone to like take care of all those decisions for her. Like absolutely, because she needs her mind totally focused on like her job.
Yeah.
We even see at a part of the movie, I think there's some quip about like she even outsources small talk.
Yeah, she didn't know how to like interact with people, so she had to outsource it because she was so busy looking into other stuff and pulling all the strings and playing Spy Master. She didn't have time to look into people and like do small talk. Yeah, it was kind of a cute joke.
Right.
But there's not a lot of movies about lobbying out there. I mean, there was like Thank You for Smoking, The American President, neither of which were spy movies, but the idea of, convincing people to make decisions in favor of whatever the lobbyist is forcing them on is definitely a interesting, I guess, piece of the trade, so to speak. I think that was really big in Thank You for Smoking, how much like argument was really important and figuring out ways to convince people to change their vote.
And I had seen this movie, and I was the one that turned you onto it. And when you proposed it for this podcast, actually my first reaction was like, "Huh? I don't remember that being a spy movie at all." And you,
it totally was. Yeah, it's definitely, not only is it filmed like a spy movie. Every minute, like there's so much tradecraft in this movie, it's ridiculous. And I was really, especially after we watched the last two films we did were like super sleaze bag men just like creeping on women. We did a Bond film and then Our Man Flint, which had a lot of like sleazy moments. I thought it'd be a good idea to bring in like a woman protagonist who was a very, very strong character. But it's like that's just
this is not only a movie that we were going to do anyway, but this is our official apology to any female listeners to the podcast for doing the James Bond and the Our Man Flint episodes back to back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely need to pull this out. But even though like this movie is really, really big on women empowerment, that's not even what the movie's about. The movie is a very, very solid spy film, like a very solid one. And you can tell that's what they were going for, that it wasn't just about lobbying. They have lines like, "Oh, this James Bond crap," or like somebody literally says in like a dinner meeting, like, "All right, let's talk tradecraft," or so, like it's and Miss Sloane is on trial for one of the reasons was kind of like partaking in illegal surveillance.
Yeah, they literally used the term espionage.
Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't. When we sat down to watch the movie together, I was just like, okay, David seems really sure of himself. He's a smart guy. I'll give him credit. And but when we sat down and watched it together, like last week, it did not take me long to be like, oh, that's right, this is a spy movie.
Great, like a lot of mind games, misinformation, moles, unwitting assets. Yeah, we even had a barium meal with a really juicy nugget. It's pretty tasty as far as tradecraft goes. So I'm actually really excited for this week's episode.
Me too, man. Let's go straight to the briefing room.
Let's do it.
Voice pattern recognized. Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
This movie employs what I believe is called a framing device. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Where there's a kind of like, in Titanic, like the beginning and the end of the movie, or like with Bill Paxton and what's her name as an old lady, and they're like going after the ruins of the Titanic, but that's not the real story, but that's like our excuse to tell the story. Or this isn't, maybe not exactly that, but something like that. We're going to jump back and forth in time a bit, especially at the beginning. But what we want to see is this this trial that she's in with Senator, played by John Lithgow, asking her about her shady activities as a lobbyist. And we'll go back and forth. We'll kind of go back and see her like getting ready to go to the trial. And we're also going to see some of the stuff that happened, I think 10 months earlier or something. The events that led up to the trial happening. The other thing we need to see is that her work for what we're going to call the evil lobbying firm in this movie on the Nutella tax. Now, the Nutella tax issue, by the way, it appears to be lifted from recent events, but they occurred in France, not the United States. Her client is the Indonesian government, and her strategy here is that she's making a shady arrangement of a technically illegal vacation trip to sway a key Senate vote. We're also going to see that at this point, she is abusing some kind of...
I'm assuming it's Adderall, because this type of level would, unless there's some other miracle drug. But yeah, to keep her focused, I think is what you were going for.
We clearly established that she is a person of ferocious intelligence and drive. She is an absolute, take no nonsense, take no prisoners, suffer no fools, straight talker that gets right to the point and gets the job done. She's an absolute beast, just right from the get-go. She takes the fifth on a bunch of the questions in the inquiry because her attorney told her, you have to take the fifth. Once you breach that, then you can't take the fifth again because then you'll be in contempt of Congress or something. Back in the past, again, she's, I guess, kind of concluded the business of... or no, she hasn't concluded it, but I guess she gets called away from the Nutella job upstairs to see the big boss, played by Sam Waterston. And he's got a new client for her, who is the head of the NRA, even though we never technically call them the NRA in this film, but that's clearly who they're supposed to be. And they've got an idea. There's a bill that's coming in Congress. It's called the Heaton-Harris Act, and it's going to make it harder for psychos to get their hands on guns. So, of course, the gun lobby wants to stop that, and they want her to run that operation because she's just got the reputation as the most fearsome lobbyist in Washington, and she basically just laughs them off.
She's kind of offended that this might be the reputation she has. So, and that, some big dogs can just roll in and, tell her what to do, and it kind of challenges her as who she is and who she's made herself as for a career. So she kind of shuts it down, I guess.
Yeah, her bosses are embarrassed and they're furious with their blah 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 blah.
Which really sets up the stage for our spy film plot. You're gonna hear me going on and on about this. The film doesn't do this in a pretentious way. They literally set the whole plot of the film is a typical spy film where you have this rogue character who does things the way they do it and goes guns a-blazing, but it's not done in a pretentious way like we had with Our Man Flint, where it was like a parody. It's taken very serious and in a very subtle way. So here she is. She's not the owner of this firm. She's kind of the ace in the hole of the firm, or the big player of the firm, the one that gets all the stuff done. And here they're kind of insulting her ego or insulting her as a person where she doesn't like that. She doesn't like being in control, or she doesn't like being controlled. She likes being the one making the decisions and making all the calls. So here she goes rogue against her own firm and against the client. I guess she's laughing at him, and it's like a very typical spy film story. But you don't really pick up on that unless you've seen a lot of these type of films because it's done so well and so subtly. And I just wanted to hammer that point in because I really enjoyed that.
Yes, I would not be surprised at all to find out that the scriptwriter was a fan of spy fiction at all.
Right.
So what happens next?
Well, next, she's like leaving the building and she's approached by this guy who she automatically assumes is a journalist by the way he's kind of questioning her. And it's played by Mark Strong, a.k.a. Merlin from the Kingsman.
We're just going to call him Merlin for the rest of this podcast.
Yeah, we're just calling him Merlin. But he was also in Deep State, if anybody saw Deep State, another great spy story. But he's pretending to be a reporter, and he's doing it in kind of like a sneaky way, so it makes her conclude that this is a reporter.
He's also in Zero Dark 30 with her.
Yes, yeah. He definitely is not a stranger to the thriller genre.
He's doing nothing to disabuse her of the assumption that he's a journalist, even though he never claimed to be. He's just kind of acting like one. But at one point, he asked her for a quote, and she's like, "Okay, fine. Here's a quote. A conviction lobbyist need only believe in her ability to win," which he purposely, we don't know this at this moment, but we'll find out real soon. He purposely miswrites this as a conviction lobbyist can't only believe in her ability to win. Right. And he underlies can't.
Right.
And
we'll later find out. Yeah.
And then he puts the offer on the other side of that same piece of paper, which she looks at the offer. She says, "I don't know whether to be flattered or insulted, but you have the wrong idea of me." But she's going to see his note as she's thinking about the offer. She's going to think about it for, I don't know, X number of hours. There's a little montage there. And we see that she sees what he wrote on the note. And that's part of what she's thinking about as she's trying to make her decision.
Right. And she ends up making the decision kind of, I guess, the next day when she's talking to her team. She kind of sets up this whole, random coup attempt, I guess, with the firm and does a whole Jerry Maguire. In fact, I think they made a joke about it because people left with her and they're like, "What is this Jerry Maguire?" But they're clearly haven't seen the movie because nobody left with him, I guess.
Right. That was a good joke.
Yeah, that was a really good joke. But she decides she's going to take the job and she takes everybody she can with her. What's interesting that we'll find out later why it's interesting, everybody kind of assumes there's this young blonde earlier in the film that had been talking about leaving the original firm to go back to post-grad. And, Sloane is cutting her down, talking about what do you want to go to post-grad for? It's a waste of time. It's a dumb move. And in this scene, everybody assumes, what I think, was her name Jane, I believe?
Jane, yes.
Yeah.
Jane is the blonde that declines to go.
Right, but everybody just assumed Jane was going to go because up until this moment, we had seen Jane being Sloane's right-hand woman, I guess. Yeah, and so they were thick as thieves, type of thing. And so everybody's assuming she's just still sitting in her seat. And so there's this big moment, are you going to come or what? Type of thing. And she's like, "No, this is my career I have to think about," and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to find out why this is really important later. But I just want to bring up this point in the movie.
I'm going to backtrack real quick to the previous night when she makes her decision of what she's going to do. We don't know what it is yet. But she calls Jane and says, we need to meet. And we don't, the only way that you would know that it's Jane that she is talking to is because she says, tell me this, if Socrates never wrote anything down, how come we know what he said, or something like that. And that's a reference to a conversation that they had previously. So this is clever movie making because we're being given the information, if you're paying very close attention, that it's Jane is the first person she calls when she makes her decision, but without rubbing our noses in it. Because if they made it too obvious, Like if they showed them having a conversation, well, as we're about to talk about, if the movie told the audience what they talked about, then the big surprise ending of the movie would be completely blown.
Right, exactly. So it's definitely important to note that they definitely were like, thick as thieves type of, always kind of plotting together.
And then the other thing we need to put a pin in before we like deliver the big, hugest spoiler of the movie is that the next day, right before she announces that she's going over to the other side, the very last thing she does is hand over a piece of paper. It's the last piece of filing documentation that's needed to do that shady Nutella business trip.
Oh yeah. Right. Which is basically paying for a trip for a senator, which is a highly illegal thing to be doing.
And what she's done here is she has intentionally filled out the form herself in her own handwriting.
Right.
And that's, again, it's the last thing that she does before she announces that she's leaving the firm. And it's after she's made her decision. So Dave, blow this wide open. What's the significance of the document?
Oh, are we going to get into it now?
We have to.
Okay. Because this is, I'm going to have to bring because I put mine later. Because this is Todd and I's top Tradecraft. Or I guess this is my number 2. This is like, what, your number 1?
How did this make your number 2? That's good. I'm going to be curious to hear what your number 1 is, but we'll get to that. But yeah, tell us what it is.
Okay, so basically this form is kind of how she wins at the end of the movie. She basically set herself up she incriminated herself by signing this document and made it very, very illegal. And this is the document that is going to give grounds for her Senate hearing that we see at the beginning of the film, that she participated in illegal activity while she was working at this firm that she had just left. So before she leaves, she sets up this document to incriminate herself. And this is really important because she threw herself under the bus towards the end of the movie, or which we see at the beginning. She's in this hearing, but we find out later this is the document that gets the hearing started, because this is a significant piece of evidence that she contributed, and she personally signed herself. And
right. What we'll do is we'll explain more of how it works when we get there. But right now is the time to flag this is when it happens in the movie, and that the timing is really important. And at the very, very, very beginning of the movie, we had a close-up of her talking directly to the camera where she talks about lobbying and her philosophy on how
you need foresight. You got to think about your opponent's moves and then plan moves ahead of time. And it's all about foresight. And this is why it was my number 2 and not my number 1, because this wasn't exactly a controlled situation for her. She was playing the probabilities ahead of time, that this is an ace up her sleeve in case she needed it.
Certainly. So the main thing, when she finishes that initial speech with, she says, always surprise them, never let them surprise you, and always play your trump card right after they have played theirs. This document is a trump card for the enemy. She's preparing a trump card for them. This is like the way you play chess. You figure out, it's the best way to beat an enemy in chess is to provide them with, make them see the way that they could beat you. But then since you already planned that ahead of them, you're prepared to pounce. So instead of waiting to see what their trump card is, she's designing one for them. And she's going to leave it like a little kind of a ticking time bomb in place that she can activate any time through the mechanism of Jane the Mole. Because the blonde chick that doesn't go...
That's right. We didn't say that. We didn't talk about her being the mole. Jane is actually the mole that she plants ahead of time. We just kind of alluded to it. Yeah.
Everyone's surprised that Jane is not coming along. But Jane and Sloane play it very convincingly in front of everyone else. But it's all theater. Because this is clearly what what they talked about the night before. They made all these arrangements, which means, again, although we totally do not know this as the audience yet, but basically, even as she made the decision to take the job, she's already figured out her checkmate. And this is my number one Tradecraft. I think it has to be. Like I said, I'm going to be really excited to hear what you think beats this. Tradecraft plus 5 points for preparing the enemy's trump card. Plus 5 points. I'm just folding this into a single number one best Tradecraft is, leaving a mole behind in the operation that you're leaving, which is going to be the delivery system of the enemy trump card. Plus 5 points, plus 5 points, plus 5 points.
Yeah, definitely a lot. This is kind of what unfolds a lot of this story later.
But I'll give a little minus 5 points on this one. For the enemy to retain Jane, who is described as Sloane's right-hand woman for 2 years, I'll give them minus 5 points for that. And I think I also wanted to give a little bit minus 5 points for her taking the intern along. The nerdy guy in glasses that kept fucking up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think she might have taken him because of trust, maybe. Or she was kind of like grooming him to be a good lobbyist or something.
I think they screw this up a little because the very first thing she says is, "You're not coming with us. You're not coming with me." But then when she calls for who's in, he comes over and she doesn't object. But I feel like he's the new guy on the team. I don't feel like they have a huge amount. He clearly hasn't worked with her for long. That's what I think.
Right. He's not privy to the Sloane tactics, so to speak, I guess.
Right. He's just taken off guard by her style, and when I call him the intern, that's just my pet name for him or whatever. It's never said that it's
he's
the
the one
intern.
that called her out on doing something illegal with the Nutella tax issue. He was like, that's very illegal, and she kind of blows him off like, well, yeah.
As opposed to Alex, Asian lady, big hair brown guy, and Jane, who all, it's demonstrated that they have a certain very strong loyalty to her, and also that they know they've worked with her for a long time, but. Again, it's established through several scenes that this guy hasn't been around for a long time. I don't think that he's worth taking, and I think that he's a potential liability. I'm just going to give her some slight minus 5 points for taking him and keeping him.
That's warranted, yeah.
My number 3 is taking him along. So, anyways, moving on.
Well, we cut back to the hearing, and it's kind of very cleverly puts us back on the focus on Sloane's, drug abuse, I guess. But she kind of cleverly appears to be broken down, luring him into what they think they've reached into. And she breaks down and goes off, going against what her attorney had told her. And then we have a scene by the elevator where the attorney's yelling at her that she messed up the whole thing and this and that. So we're definitely setting the stage for this kind of the typical spy film, like I'm saying, where our character is kind of like a loose cannon, and that's what I really like about this film. It's really a typical spy character setup, but it's so subtle. It's not pretentious whatsoever. You wouldn't even notice. You just see this character that's very strong and very self-willed. And, is just kind of like a ticking time bomb type of thing. So I really enjoyed how they took the trope spy and made it very, very, very intricate and very, very well done. But, I think we can look at her breakdown in court as kind of like a psyops type of situation.
Oh, yeah, plus 5 points. Plus 5 points for that because, again... she wants them to she wants them to keep coming on this line of attack, and for her to make them do that, it has to look like this is wearing her down. They have found her pressure point. They haven't found shit.
Right. No, no, whatsoever. She's leading them, and they're not leading her. Um, so basically, we come back out of the inquiry, and the firm she just left seals the deal with the gun lobby, or with the gun advocates, who is obviously the NRA, which they never say the NRA in the whole thing, but they gain the contract saying that we understand Sloane and how she works, and we're gonna get ready to beat her, and you need us.
Right. So, and that's, basically we're at the end of Act 1. We've put all the players on the stage, and we know what the stakes are. The stakes are the Heaton-Harris bill. And the evil lobby, I'm going to call them, the firm that she just left, those are the bad guys. They're trying to stop the bill. The good lobby that she has just joined, they're going to win if they pass the bill.
After the enemy firm seals the deal with the gun lobby, or the NRA, so to speak, we are introduced to Ford. I don't even know why we should mention him, because he doesn't have that significant of a role, other than he is an escort that Miss Sloane meets with.
He's a very fun but minor character. I mean, I adore him, but he's not essential to the story at all.
Right, and in the moment that we meet him, she walks into the hotel and freaks out and is like, "Who the hell are you?" And as the audience, we think, oh, some guy snuck into her hotel. Well, it turns out she has been seeing escorts regularly, and she's like, I explicitly told them to send Mark, or whatever the guy's name was, and now there's this new guy. And he kind of plays the bad boy. He's drinking out of the mini bar, got his shirt off, kind of nonchalant, doesn't care, type of cowboy type of character. And he plays it very, very, very cool, like, hey, if you don't like it, there's the door. And she goes, all right, well, you'll do fine.
But but it's what we're talking about here is like, she is kind of freaked out. I mean, she doesn't just say, okay, fine. I mean, she eventually does.
Right. But she's because clearly she keeps a discreet life. And, obviously if she's on the hill dealing with an escort service, they have to be a high-end escort service. And the high-end escort service must be very, very discreet. So she's thoroughly upset that she's not getting her way, type of thing. And it's kind of a problem for her, because she specifically asked for a specific person.
And this is another, like, it's another, like, part of her character that goes that she is so, like, single-minded about work that she basically, like, outsources all of her other needs. She doesn't have time for a boyfriend. She doesn't have time for a husband. Right. This is just like her efficient way of getting her human needs met. And as we're going to establish more, like, throughout the movie, like, she also is extremely, she keeps a very tight circle around her of people that she trusts. Right. I think she says, like, something like, it's Washington, you're never standing more than, like, 6 feet away from a rat, or something like that. So also, so that was, I love that you mentioned that too, because I hadn't thought of it before, but, like, she probably does. Now, of course, there could be, like, other reasons that she's so insistent on having the same guy every time. It could be, like, maybe it just took her a long time to get comfortable with this whole escort thing.
Right,
maybe
she doesn't let anybody into her, who she is as a person, or her, so it's getting on an intimate level like that. She wants to be comfortable, and she needs something that she's used to, type of thing.
And it could be that, but given the structure and, like, the emphasis of the movie, I think it's more likely to conclude that this is part of her way of, again, limiting her exposure, being careful.
Right, and
just
like
on an intellectual, strategic level, when she started seeing escorts, she probably, like, made this calculation, like, hey, you know what? Probably not be a good idea to just be seeing a random guy every week.
Right, exactly. And she has these needs that need to be met, so she just kind of outsources them, like you had said. And this is kind of why I put this as my number 3 word, Tradecraft. We'd already discussed that it was difficult for us to find one, but this one I mean, like the seeing escorts, I don't think is exactly the liability. I mean, her only weaknesses that we can see in this film, I guess, is that she sees an escort, she takes pills. But I mean, like, it's like for a person at her caliber, this isn't like abnormal. This is very normal, right? So, but my concern with this was the fact that there was a switch up after she had left her firm and took it on a new firm. This should have set off some alarm
Oh
bells.
yeah.
This should
Oh
have,
yeah.
she should have been like, what the, I mean, like, we can assume this escort service is discreet if they're dealing with people on the hill, but she can't be the only client they have, right? So I don't think it's that big of a point, but that's why I put it in my number 3. Like I was saying, it was hard for us to find words.
No, I don't think you need to apologize for this one at all, dude. I mean, I think that's a really good catch, and I'm impressed that you noticed that, because that's a really good one. And maybe, well, let's see. I mean, yeah, I think given everything we know about her and the way she operates, that we're going to see through the film, even though like here we're early in the film, that she would have triggered to that. And you know what? If she was actually a spy, like absolutely, this would have been alarm bells. So I don't think there's any need to apologize for this one, or to say like it's, we had to scrape to find this one. I think this one's 100% solid. Good job, Dave. Minus 5 points.
For sure. I mean,
now,
yeah, like she's a totally careful person, and this should have been like a wake up, like, oh, just the timing, you know what I mean? But fortunately, it turns out to not be that big of a deal later, so it's whatever.
Sure. I don't want to spend a lot of time on Mr. Ford, but there was something that remember you said. Let's see. There's a character we're going to meet really soon whose last name is Manachurian or something, which seems to be like a little, hidden
Oh yeah. Well,
sign or something. We'll get to her. We'll get to her in a second. We'll get to her in a second. Don't do that right now. But I had to bring it up because that made me say, well, I noticed like later in the movie we find out this guy's name is Robert Ford. And Robert Ford, when I hear that, that's the name of the guy that shot Jesse James. And
but I looked it
there's
up.
nothing in the movie that says anything like he actually does have at the end of the movie a chance to kind of metaphorically shoot her in the back, but doesn't. So I don't think there's anything there with the fact that his name is Robert Ford.
Well, I looked into this, and apparently Robert Ford was, I guess a different Robert Ford, was a famous Antarctic explorer. And we've already seen like how icy cold Sloane can be from and so maybe the director or writer was going for something like he is exploring the ice or something. I don't know, but I thought that was interesting because
are you fucking kidding me? Robert Ford was an Antarctic explorer?
Yeah, he actually was part of a big expedition. What was the expedition? The Terra Nova expedition, which went to the Antarctic.
We gotta get off of Ford. Good catch. But let's get back to the movie. We just spent way too much time talking about this minor character. Although, again, I love the guy. They settle in at the new firm, and this is a pretty decent piece of exposition. I'm always on the lookout for exposition, especially since, like, I guess I feel like I maybe just know how lobbying works, maybe more than the average person. But in the whole setup of them kind of merging their teams,
right,
this is a good opportunity for their conversation between each other, between the different team members, to kind of accidentally like drop in telling the audience, okay, because seriously, just in case you don't know, audience, how lobbying works and how senators are massaged and approached and manipulated to get their votes in different ways. Like, a lot of the movie's not going to make sense to you. So this is a kind of a good place. I think it's fairly well done, and I'm not sure. I mean, I couldn't do it better. But just to say, like, I just wanted to point that out. This is basically where we get a quick primer on lobbying.
Yeah, and then we meet Esme, the gun control expert, and she kind of grooms her as an asset over dinner.
Sloane.
And Sloane is grooming her. Like she takes her out to dinner to some like small Chinese joint that's definitely like way below Sloane's, financial status. And we learn that's where Sloane eats like all the time. But we all know that Sloane's already done her homework on this Esme.
She's like looked deeply into Esme's resume, and has even noticed like not just what's there, but what's not there. Right. But what's not there, she notices a gap, which just happens to correspond with a certain I don't think it's clarified in the movie what shooting they're talking about, but some mass shooting event that Esme is a survivor of. And the only way that Sloane was able to figure that out was just that Esme didn't say on her resume where she was that year, but it would have made sense if you look at the surrounding information that could have been it. So plus spy points for Sloane. She's going to get a lot of spy points in this movie.
Yeah. She honors it. Yeah.
And this is getting my number 3 best tradecraft in the movie in the way that she, gets this conversation going with Esme, because she totally makes it look like it's an accident. They just happen to be, like, Esme's waiting for a cab, and Sloane just comes up and, they just happens to be intersecting, and they have just a little casual conversation, and, hey, are you hungry? And it just makes it look like her interest in Esme is casual. It's not. No. So plus spy points for that. I promise you, if she had seen like a potential asset in any of the other people at the firm, she'd be doing the same shit to them. But she's not. She's figured out Esme, and that also means she's probably, again, done her homework on every single member of the team.
Absolutely.
Deep homework. She's almost like I'm going to say this now, like she's almost like Sherlock Holmes in her intellectual powers.
Yes.
She's basically on that level, except that she doesn't go around showing it off necessarily. I mean, she definitely does, present herself and unashamedly as being the smartest person in the room. Yeah. She is that, but when you really look at the way she operates, by the end of the movie, you realize that she is actually even like 10 times smarter than, like, even if everyone around her thinks she's the smartest person in the room, she's actually 10 times smarter than that. So she's kind of like Sherlock Holmes that was actually smart enough to not let people know just how fucking smart he is.
Yeah, she's like she shows herself as being smarter than the average person on the hill, but she doesn't let on like the crazy high level abstract like chess playing smart that she actually is.
Although, Jane does essentially tell the enemy team that she is that good.
Right, that's how she seals the deal at the dinner with the NRA.
Yeah, Jane definitely gets plus spy points for making herself seem invaluable as the person that knows Sloane's abilities and tactics better than anyone. There's a shooting in Wisconsin that makes the whole issue like really heat up again. And little tradecraft Connors, who we haven't introduced yet. Connors is basically the heavy on the enemy team. You know how like in a spy movie you have like the evil spy master, and then you have his the heavy, the guy with the gun, the guy that the hero needs to actually like physically beat up. Well, we're not going to have any fist fights or gunfights in this movie, but Connors.
We have one.
Oh, that's true. Okay, that's true.
Right.
Well, it's
for the most part,
pretty one-sided gunfight. Maybe maybe that guy should have been named Robert Ford.
Yeah.
that would have been too on the nose. But
Sloane's play at a fundraiser, right?
Right. So what I was trying to say, the reason I brought up Connors is I'm giving some plus 5 points for him seeing on the news the Wisconsin shooting and him knowing Sloane well enough that she's going to see that senator as being vulnerable and that's where she's immediately going to go.
Which she does.
He happens to be right, so that's why plus 5 points.
Yeah, and Sloane puts the brunette Claire, who's on her firm's team, the current firm that she's working at team for the fundraiser. She plants Claire to ask questions at this fundraiser, and the other team, the bad guy firm, as we said, Connor had already foreseen that she was going to do this. Makes sure that she doesn't get to ask a question. However, we discover that Sloane used Claire as a decoy and set someone else up to ask the question, which puts the senator in a really bad position where he has to publicly announce that he supports the Heat and Harris bill, which is our gun control bill.
All right, good job. Plus 5 points for this whole like operation. Just move and countermove. It's my number 2 best tradecraft.
That's a good one. That's definitely a good one.
There is a little stuff here I didn't quite understand. Claire's upset about the fact that she got like shoved to the side. Sloane just has to explain again, unapologetically. She never apologizes for any. I don't think. Well, yeah, she finally apologizes near the very end of the movie. But generally speaking, she's not someone that apologizes for anything. And she says, they knew who you were, so you were blown. So I had a backup plan, and I moved you out of play. And you deleted all your online existence, but you just left a hole, which they were able to notice. Now, Claire says, like, I did, like, wait, did I say, like, online presence, like, you know, like, I don't know, her Facebook, her Twitter, blah, 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 right?
Right.
Sloane says, well, that just left a hole, which they noticed, and that's how they keyed in on you. Now, Claire does say that, like, no, I did replace the stuff, but apparently she didn't do it well enough. Right. And so for the enemy team to have deduced, you know, that Claire was a plant based on sloppily deleted and replaced online stuff, I don't know. That's just some pretty fucking good tradecraft right there.
Yeah, because they probably had a list of all the attendees of the fundraiser at some point and looked into everybody and then found this person with a gaping hole and was like, who the hell is this? And then they probably found out that she works for the good guy firm.
And again, it just demonstrates once again that this is a spy movie because everybody on both sides is doing deep, deep, deep dives into the research and backgrounds of everyone that might possibly be on the game board.
Right. From this point, we have Sloane pulling out the entire team outside, and she's in this like kind of shiny leather-looking sexy outfit like you would find in the Matrix, and pulls everybody out into the square and sets up what we'll call a barium meal. Well, barium meal is basically when you plant false information or real information for that matter, and it's probably better that you give real information so that you can suss out a mole. So the idea here, so I'm only telling you the team who I trust, you know, type of situation. And she talks about the senator in Florida, and she's like, this is where we're going. We're going to Florida, and I can only tell you guys because I can only trust you guys. And wearing this whole outfit, we'll talk about the outfit in a little bit, but you know, she makes a big deal about it, and this is her barium meal. And the nugget is this Florida senator. That the big secret is they're going to go after the Florida senator, and it's a big deal, and all that other stuff. And this is how she says
it's a big deal. It's a big deal because it's ultra surprising and confounds Merlin. Florida is supposedly like just one of the votes that they're not supposed to be able to get, that no one would think of trying to get, and that's why this is a surprise.
Right, and she makes a whole spectacle of it to make it look like such a big deal, and that this is a big secret. And so this is my number 2 best tradecraft, because what she does is create this situation and make every every move that she makes in this whole thing, like getting him out of the office, putting on this outfit, making a whole parade about it, how this is the big secret and stuff like that. She like feeds this idea, and now she's able to spot the mole. And this is the barium meal that she set up. So I really, really like this scene.
You mentioned the outfit like 4 times, and I think maybe you put too much emphasis on it. It's not outlandish, but I am saying that you could like fit this in on a character on like an Austin Powers or our man Flint kind of scene, as you know, communicating to you, evil spy master, see this person, this is an evil spy master. And so I give plus spy points for the movie, because it is kind of like one of her most spy-y kind of scenes that she does in the movie, and the fact that she happens to be in her spy-y-est outfit at the time just clicks for me, and I dig it. We're immediately going to see that Connors has instantly been tipped off to the Florida plan.
And this confirms that there is a leak.
Yes. And we're just about it. The movie doesn't waste a lot of time making us wait to figure out who it is. Very soon after, there's a meeting in the office where she basically outs the mole. Well, let's give the enemy team some plus spy points for actually leveraging their own asset in the good agency.
Yep.
Now, this is though, I want to give some minor minus spy points for Sloane here. Her barium meal isn't perfectly efficient. Now, I forgive her because she's not actually trained as a spy, but a better spy would have been able to narrow down who the exact mole is without having everyone followed. Because that's what we're going to see in a subsequent scene where Claire confronts her and says, like, well, how did you know it was the blonde chick? And Sloane says, I didn't. And that's when Claire realizes, like, wait a second, are you having all of us tailed?
Right.
But it's not that bad, because if you count it out, she brings 8 people down to the quad. Well, technically 9, but we're gonna mark Merlin as not someone that she needs to follow, right?
Right.
It would be nonsensical. I think it's really unlikely that it's Alex or big hair brown dude or Chinese lady, Asian lady, I should say. I don't know that she's Chinese. Because they all have proven, they've all shown like strong loyalty to her, but maybe she is paranoid enough to need to follow them. But I think it could be the intern. So maybe that's only like 4 people that she needs to have tailed, but that's still a lot. And a better spy would have like worked this operation out in such a way that they could have, because like tailing people 24/7 and stuff, like that's expensive. That's a huge use of resources.
Surveillance is very expensive.
A better spy would have been able to do this in such a way that they just figured out who the mole was without having to like follow every single person 24/7 just to see if they might be the mole.
Yeah. This was your number 2 worst, right?
That was my number 2 worst.
This was also my number 2 worst, but I put it on the other team. I mean, like, definitely plus spy points for having a mole, but they didn't really plan or have a backup plan for the mole being sussed out. And if they had been working with her for, years and known what kind of, extents she would have gone to win, they should have known that she would have watched everybody and probably found out the mole at some point and should have had a backup plan, which we see that they don't.
How about in this case? Let's give just the minus spy points for them having the meeting. Apparently, it looks like they met in a park or something. Maybe they should have met in a parking garage, or just had the conversation like just over the phone, like not meet at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, presumably she has phones tapped, maybe because we find out later she's working with ex-NSA people, so she's obviously good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually. Now that you bring them up because that's the next thing that happens.
Oh yeah, so she goes to this like seedy garage where she meets these two kind of like obviously like elite kind of dorky guys, you know, like they're and along comes Merlin and he meets these guys that she obviously has a relationship with, and we discover they're ex-NSA, and they show all the cool tech. In fact, this is like really the only tech we get to see is from them, and and she proposes to Merlin. Well, you know, we can do this. And that's why I think she had him follow there, because I think she was testing his morals. Like, I think this was really a test for him to see whether or not he would agree to this.
This is ethics, not morals.
Or ethics, right? Yeah. And so she, in her like degree of, or I guess length that she'll go to win, you know, it's already known. There is no line that is uncrossed. You know, it's always like always crossing the line to win and just don't get caught. But here we find out that Merlin isn't all about the win. He's all about doing the right thing, which is why his firm exists. That's the entire like goal of their firm, is to support bills or deny bills that they disagree with on ethical reasons. So she brings up and says, well, you know, we could do this and tap people and spy on people and do all this surveillance. And he's just like, you know, and he says we skip back to the hearing when he's asked like about like surveillance. He was like, yes, I was taking this seedy garage and I told her this is ingenious, but cruel and despicable and disgusting. And I told her flat out, no, you know, like, damn it, Sloane. This is another like, damn it, Sloane, like, you know, moment. Like, yeah, where like, it's like, we're not doing this. We don't sink to this level type of thing, you know? And so it actually was a great scene. So I really think she did lure him there, but, you know, we don't actually get that confirmed. One of the really cool techs that we get to see, you know, because every spy film needs some amount of tech. I don't care if you're talking about in the 50s. We're talking about some amount of tech somewhere. They make a quirky statement about how you've heard of the fly on the wall recording and blah blah blah. Well, look at this cockroach, and they basically have a remote control cockroach that they can like control and sneak in anywhere because cockroaches are everywhere, especially
right. And this cockroach, we'll find out later, like can have a camera and audio capture.
And stand on the hood of a car without being noticed.
This is my number one worst, and this one was easy for me. That these ex-NSA guys, they shouldn't have explained the cockroach to Merlin. There's no reason to explain the details of their technology to a civvy. This is pure exposition just to make sure to set up that the audience knows that Sloane has this capability. Well, minus 5 points for them over-explaining their tech. Right. I mean, I see how it was necessary to get the information to the audience, but like, boo on these guys. And these are the only two people in the movie that are actual spies. So, you know, we get to be even more harsh on them. Right. That's why.
Exactly.
That's why it rockets straight to my number one worst.
Yeah, these guys are SIGINT like experts and stuff, and they're handing information as some random guy they just met based on Sloane's word. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So wait, where are we now?
Well, we're gonna see. There's gonna be a Sloane versus Connors debate, and at the hotel where it's gonna be taped, one of the enemy agency guys is on the top balcony where he can observe Sloane and her team. And this pays off when he sees Ford try to approach Sloane.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And this is not that Ford and Sloane have, you know, made this connection or something. It's just an absolute coincidence that they happen to be at the same hotel lobby. And Ford kind of, I think he deserves some minus high-end discreet escort points for seeing Sloane and coming up to her and saying hi. Now, he doesn't exactly say that, you know, he doesn't say like, oh, hi, lady that pays me to fuck her. You know, he comes up and he says like, I think have we met before? I think we have. I remember your face.
Yeah, definitely minus high escort points for not being discreet, especially if he's working for a high-end escort point. Right? I mean, clearly it's a setup for the movie, because this is one of the juicy details that they get to kind of throw on a Sloane later in the hearing.
And we'll give some plus spy points for the fact that enemy agency guy just happened to notice that chance meeting. Perhaps he clocked her discomfort, but they literally, obviously, tasked someone and put resources into finding out exactly who this person is that she just had a, I don't know, 10-second long interaction with in a random hotel. These guys are on the job.
Yeah, definitely on the job.
Plus spy points.
Yeah, that's why they get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. So this seems a good place to take a break. It's about this time in the film that we start to see Sloane starting to make mistakes, using questionable judgment.
Next episode, we're going to go over all that in detail and how it ultimately ties to her master's scheme. To make sure you don't miss out on that, subscribe to Spies Like Us podcast on iTunes, Google, and your favorite podcast app. Also, if you can find updates on our Facebook page or website, spieslikeus.net. And please, if you can help us out, give us some feedback and rating by leaving us comments. We're always trying to improve the show, and your thoughts would be a huge help.
The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.